Hey y'all, my name is Dimitri Paniotu, founder of Premier Connect AI, and I'm home in Austin, Texas because I believe my keynote presentation that was presented earlier this month in May of 2026 in Canada at the Atlanta Optical Conference is not only a message that those in the room and beyond were able to receive value from, but I believe that it will pertain to y'all as well. And so watch till the end to understand the 5 crucial part frameworks that I believe every community, every business, every owner, employee, etc. needs to understand before they deploy AI for results rather for noise. So stay and watch. I'd love to continue this conversation. So don't forget about the booking link below inside this email. Stay and watch till the end to understand the 5 crucial frameworks, and I look forward to talking to y'all more. Later. Let's dive into a 5 focal shift. So from my expertise, again, as I told you, last year I practiced this in real results. Austin, Texas is a non-licensed optical state, which does offer a great experience because my beloved mother, Joy, with Alfred Optical, lives in Indiana. And so both of those things give me a better edge on why opticians are able to accelerate in AI. Shift number 1, we're gonna move from chaos to control this morning so that you're acting in governance and best practices just the same way that your business operates. When you can align those values, you don't see AI as an outsider, but rather you see it as its own corner. You see it as its own assistant, designed to practically assist you when needed. And shift number 2, my friends, moving from random acts, random tools, random innovating pieces to practical returning on investment practices. Purpose. We're going to be able to define the context, define the outcome before you even think of what you're wanting to ask. Because oftentimes, it understands those principles based off of context memory. And when you're able to understand the behind the scenes, the front end interactions, the prompting, the memories, that becomes so clear that it's hard for you not to use these tools when you know that your time and energy is the most invaluable position of your job. In shift number 3, we're gonna move from autopilot to assisted techniques. Oversight, my friends, is the most key aspect. I'm not gonna mention any crazy terms because I truly don't believe in it. I don't believe that the businesses that accelerate in the next 5 years are the ones that are using the best and effective and crazy technology AI, but rather they understood that not only themselves, but their team have to shift from a role-based thinking model to a workflow-based thinking model. And we'll dive into those actual 3 points in action in just a moment. Shift number 4, we're gonna move from Googling to guiding. So you're gonna understand practical prompts, not only questions to ask, but in order to receive the best effective questions to pinpoint your pyramid precision. In shift number 5, my personal favorite, we're gonna move to culture. Instead of having a model or an outside contingency, learn and teach your systems and your best employees about AI, you're gonna lean in as the leader, as the instructor, to understand that if you're not teaching them, they're finding a way to get taught. Let's get started. Shift number 1. Moving from chaos to control is an element you have all seen on the day-to-day. Oftentimes, the questions from your patients or customers might not be directed to what frames or lenses they require, but because you're an expert, you're able to funnel their questions down the end of the yellow brick road, right to the pot of gold, to their frames and their lenses that they're gonna love forever. You're also gonna be able to understand that before you open any model, I use ChatGPT because from my experience, 80% of those that are using AI are using ChatGPT. And don't get me wrong, there's incredible models, and I'll say this more than once. There isn't one model that's going to be the best. It's what adapts to the best version of yourself. And too much than not, we get overboarded, we get overwhelmed with how much there is currently in this space. And my friends, it really is hard to push away and not be as adapting to other tools when you've already had maybe 5 months, 2 years, maybe more. You might have heard of it right after we got done with COVID, and if you did, kudos, because at that time, this was nothing to what we see today. And I really believe that's the true impact that we find within the business, within the optical world. So the answer for governance is, what are the rules of engagement in my business? What is it that I want AI to interact with? Where's their role? Without that role, hallucinations will occur. And of course, your occasional yes man, that's an absolutely great idea. Thank you so much for providing. Let's dive right in. It's all great senses, but you're wanting to ensure that those patient-facing decisions are in your pure state, so that you're not guessing, but rather you're having preparation before the actual decision making. You're brainstorming. I brainstorm all the time with these models, and it's so key because I don't think any of their decisions are what I'm truly needing, because those decisions are more patient-focused than none. The human interaction piece is a huge quality, and I see it all the time. Having conversations with those that are similar age groups or even classmates are so hard to grasp. Sometimes it's like talking to a wall, and other times you can really get a great conversation going. But that within itself helps you understand governance to own the final decision. And so that you're not setting boundaries, you're enabling guardrails in order to build on concrete instead of sand. There's a couple great examples, and there's a couple bad examples as well. We want to make sure that AI drafts instead of executes without verification. And that's a great governance piece, because the best way to start in this state of mind is before you even think of step one. And so the governance piece is the most crucial element of all these 5 focal frameworks. And it's because when you ask AI to handle all patient communications, I got a lot of things in my inbox here. I like to call mine chatty, because if I don't, then I get kind of bored. And so without the human review element, it's so noticeable now, especially when you have a lot of memory. Has there anybody been using AI longer than 2 months? Longer than 6 months, maybe? Bless you. Longer than a year. Oh, I love it. I love it. And it's especially that key piece, because you find the practicality when you experience new prompts. When you find new ideas, you find new outcomes. And those aren't new, they're existing. And that's why you're going to these AI models, because you know the acceleration is the most crucial element. And your time and energy is not meant on finding those answers, but rather understanding what it is and finding an executional path so that your team, your patients, are understanding that you are there for them no matter what. Another great example is when you ask a frame recommendation, not a final decision, but rather analyzing face structure is a great way that I love to help my mother in this. Last week, she walked into a union shop that works with manufacturing in specifics of steel workers. These steel workers work all day, and they're not trying to understand how my eyewear or my safety prescription glasses are supposed to fit. That's why my mother goes in. She does 3 free fittings every single quarter. And those, within an essence, are the best conversations. I'll get calls. Oh my gosh, I just spoke to someone that was brand new here, and they didn't understand that you had to have your nose bridge fit. And don't get me wrong, I'm no expert in the optical practice, in the actual essence of where you are the professional, but I have a great way of being able to adapt with it and understand that those elements of your personal judgment are the invaluables. The bad way of it is asking AI all these recommendations without staff insight, without a review element that you are the ultimate strategic operator. Shift number 2, purpose. I love this question because in the last year, being certified and consuming a lot of accredited information, this is the one thing that divides chaos to success. And so the purpose element is more crucial when you ask this one question. I'm using AI in order to save or make you blank. And wherever you are in your business, you can answer this question over and over. I go back to this question almost 3 times a day because when you consume more, it's very easy to confuse the rest of what you do. And the purpose for AI is to be your Robin, not to give you advice on being Batman. Defining your action specifically is where you're able to see AI handle the operations that are not affected on the patient interactions. And the quality impact is massive. The hours you save, the energy that you can bring back to yourself, the things that your patients are secretly begging for you to bring to the table when you meet them, for your annual exams, for fittings and adjustments. Anybody in here only do contacts? Amazing. Amazing. Great examples of this is when you understand the exact format of your outcome. So, example 1, I want to automate recall messages to save 10 hours a week. Trays stack up more than you understand. And you're the expert, you're the strategic operator that understands that those elements are repeatable. It's not just at the end of the year or at the very start, it's throughout the whole operating features. A bad way of affecting this or introducing this is using AI to improve one element. I want to improve my marketing by 20% in order that I can get 10 new customers by the end of this quarter. AI responds with, that's a great way to operate. I completely agree, and this is what you have to do. You don't have to do anything except be the expert your customers are asking you to be. Implementing chatbots might already be some type of tool that you have already come into interacting with. Personally, it's a little unauthentic. And for me, when I'm wanting to purchase something like eyewear, you know best that you want the organic feel. You want to understand that there's care behind the decision. And when you interact with chatbots, it might be a brand recognition. It might understand the tone that you already operate within your business. But it's not going to be that experience when you call, especially when you're in person. Shift number 3, oversight. In the last 8 weeks, AI has moved from a model called ANI. That stands for Artificial Nano Intelligence, where you offer AI a narrow inspection, a narrow outcome, and it produces a plan, a deception, all things that are going to produce a great outcome, but there's one thing that's missing. It's called AGI. And I'm a firm believer that artificial generative intelligence is not the way to use AI. It's because when automating chaos, you create a bigger, faster mess. Having a mess is not what leads you to excellence. And so the rule is very simple. AI in your business should remain assisted and not autonomous. If you offer it things that offer only professional judgment, it's going to effectively create chaos. And AI is not here for that. There will be consultants that might say, if you don't jump on this ship, it's going to leave without you. But you have to remember that you steer the ship. You operate the effective measures that create the excellence persona. It supports your preparation, but it doesn't have the final say. AI lacks empathy, and your customers understand that. That's why when they have chatbots and they have other tools that they're currently interacting with, more than ever, that is not the actual avenue. Instead, blind automation is the most dangerous thing in AI currently today. And I'll tell you why. Automation has increased by 60% just this year. And that's dangerous because where are we going to be by the end of the year? Nor am I excited, but I'm also concerned. Mostly because the excellence piece of an expert optician needs to stay concrete. Because if not, it's going to drift. And I really believe that this room is going to be the reason why it's here to stay. Shift number 4. Not quite there, but it's going to capture the route so that not only are your agents capturing information to supply you with that ultimate decision, but it's going to create an atmosphere that your patients and your employees understand that you are a strategic operator and not someone that thinks AI is the biggest and the best, and if I don't adapt now, I'm going to be lost at sea. Humans are always the final say. And more than ever, when an industry is more focused on technology rather than human excellence, you're able to flip the script rather than your competitors believing that without AI, they won't have an excellent advantage. It's quite the opposite, my friends. Shift number 4, context prompting. This is the one simple way that everyone that understands if you're going to use AI, you have to understand how to ask it questions. I'll give you guys an insider scoop. Whenever I start a new project, I always think, is there anyone that has done this better than I have? I start with the 3 experts in any subject idea. For instance, last week I automated my social media for June and July. I made sure to include the fact that Austin is a miserable, hot mess in all of my contexts. But I also made sure to influence my brand awareness. And so, when asking my AI model to schedule and come up with brand ideas for my content, I was able to provide it a simple framework where I instructed the top 3 experts in creating impactful content that relates to opticians is ultimately going to lead an impact greater than my time and energy. And I love creating content. I think more than ever, personal branding can also be fun, but it also can be impactful. Not only the individuals that you meet online, but also the impact that you leave with those that you might not know today, but you could know tomorrow. So moving from a Google framework to a guiding framework is going to ultimately lead you to an area of day and night translations when interacting with AI. If we have some time afterwards, I would love to include this amazing prompt, but it's important to understand that context prompts, they're not questions, they're practical instructions to guide your model to understand why you are the excellent operator, and anything that's an extension of you should not be misconstrued. It should not be content that you have to apologize for later because my AI came up with it. Not a good enough excuse, my friends. The clearer you are, AI becomes an understanding element rather than a replacing agent. Great examples of this is when you need a personalized draft. It might be promotional marketing. You might be having back to school or end of school, I know more than ever, I am very anticipation of when classes end next week. But bad examples of this are create me a back to school message on 20% off of my products. That's a mess. Not offering it context and outcome personas, but rather translating it into a more effective instructional base rather than I have something I need to do and I need to find the fastest way to produce that outcome. It's not the way, my friends. And shift number 5, from TikTok to training. I promise you today that if you are not instructing your employees or your executives or your partners, whoever, someone else is. And it's hard when an era of today is more accustomed on being their phones rather than having meaningful conversation and connections. And it's not anyone's fault. It's we're all in that same boat. And so the reality is that they're already using AI either personally or professionally. But as you as the leader to position not only yourself, but for those that work alongside you in a more uniform and universal perspective, that, my friends, will get you closer to the opportunity of teaching through AI. Not having outside trainings, but using your brand recognition in the context that you operate every single day so that you're sharing that message at a faster rate than your competitors. Each step is crucial to understand that you will have to repeat this. It's not a one and done, but it is a framework that you now understand that you don't have to relearn. Your team understands your best practices when using AI, especially with customer privacy. Never should you use patient information with AI models. More than ever, you want to include everything because it's easy. Copying and pasting is way more effective than verifying, translating text. But it's the most crucial, excellent point, separating mess from excellence. Some great examples of this is when you hold monthly team meetings on AI check-ins. The regulation of consistency is a better position rather than a one and done. A bad way of translating this is, I know I need AI, so find me the best subscription tool. These are the elements that I'm needing. Find me the best and assume that my team will adopt naturally. Don't assume anything because AI is changing each and every week. And I'm sure by the end of today, there will be new tools that might be on your feed. It might be entertaining the fact that you need to switch. My friends, it's most important to create internal guides tailored for your context information. The compounding knowledge when you interact with your patients within your clientele is not only crucial, but it doesn't happen without that guiding principle. You guide them from idea to adequate product to ultimate solution that they understand every single morning when they put in their contacts or they put on their eyewear frames. AI has become inconsistent. And it's not because the standards have changed, it's because the consumption has translated. My friends, I engage and I invite you all to open the culture opportunity. Not so that you're building training systems on your best practices or the standards that are interchanging every quarter or every annual review, but rather, every new hire starts smarter. And when you bring in smarter people, those that are already existing become smarter with them.